Hello, everybody. Thank you for the audio check. You should be getting a check in the mail. Should not have bought this. These are crazy. I can't. You don't buy these because you eat all the bag. Check in the mail. Yep. Okay. There we go. I think everything's all right. Welcome, everybody, to the live show. This is the Saturday show that we do every Saturday at 20 UTC, unless Paul the Cat is sick. For those asking for news for Paul the Cat, he's good. He's good. What happened is he would vomit everything that he eat and drink last week, starting about Friday, midday Friday. He vomited, which is not abnormal because from time to time you'll have a hairball or something like that, but it doesn't happen very often. But now what was weird is that he started to vomit everything that he was eating and drinking. So that was kind of weird. And that went on Saturday and Sunday, good part of Sunday, before it kind of subsided and was coming better. And now this week has been okay. So I had two choices to bring him to a emergency vet, which was kind of far from where I am. Or, because the problem with the vets here in Montreal is that they're all overwhelmed with the amount of people with animals that take appointments. So it's like your regular vet takes like a month before you can actually see him. So when I started, it was getting better. I waited on Monday morning and I thought I'm going to try two things. I'm going to call my vet and see if by any chance, if there's a possibility he could see me, or if not, emergency. So finally, it wasn't too bad on Monday morning. He was actually good, and apart from vomiting, he was like, fine. He would walk around, go outside, and do his standard life. It was not like it was weird. It was like, well, it's not kind of sick. He's just vomiting, but in between he just goes around, wanders, and does his, what he would do usually. So that was kind of weird. It was like, well, he's not kind of sick. There's something weird here. Anyways, when it was okay on Monday, I thought, well, okay, I'm going to take an appointment with the vet, which is coming up at almost the end of May. It was so crazy long. And he's been okay this week. So he's back to his normal kitty side. But I will take some measures though, because he is obese, and I want him to kind of have some lose some weight. So I've been kind of controlling a lot more what he eats. But I don't know. I was wondering, did he go outside and eat something you shouldn't have eaten somewhere? Garbage, whatever. I know that he follows Mignon a lot. When she goes outside, I see him following her all the time. So, I don't know. Okay. So, anyways, he's back to normal. He's just sleeping on the bed right now. So he's all his kitty self. He meowed because he wanted me to pet him before he went to sleep. The usual Paul the cat. Nice to have all of you here. So, my name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, northeast part of North America. This is a show about radio, a show where we talk about shortwave radio mostly, but not just shortwave radio. Actually, I got a few questions that I want to answer that I got through the email and that are interesting. And they have to do with a little bit with VHF, UHF and also the 6 meter band. So we're gonna check that out because there's a lot of things that are coming because we're in that part of at that time of the year where we're getting close to Sportic E-Skip and all of that. I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Um, there's a so we're here every Saturday at 20 hours Universal Time. There's a beautiful chat room with wonderful people that you can join and chat with, and it's a great place if you're new to the hobby. If you've been a ham for 50 years, it doesn't matter. Everybody's welcome, and I think not only everybody can help in some way, maybe others, but also I think even if it's been a very long time since you've been doing radio, I think there's still things we can learn. There's always new things that we didn't know anything about. So cheers, the usual water, um, sparkling water in cranberry juice. So there's a lot of fun, and we've got a great community here, great people that are just fun to be with and love radio. And we say it all the time, it's a solitary hobby, and what's cool here is that everybody gathers into what they love. And when all of this is over, we have a Facebook group that has more than 3,000 members where it's pretty active. People are sharing what they're listening to and so on. Pretty cool and a great place to be also, and see what others are listening to, what equipment they use, and what they have their own comments and their own little reviews of radios, and what they think, and the important thing is to be happy with whatever you have and use it. um Whatever reviews are, I've had radios over the years. I always find it kind of funny when people get mad because I trash a radio, because I find that for the price, it's not worth the door. It's or it has so many flaws that it should be. It shouldn't be like that for the price paid. But the idea behind this is simple: is just enjoy and what you have. If you have a radio that somebody doesn't, the reviews aren't that great, and I've had that over the years. I've had radios that didn't have really good reviews, but somehow, I kind of worked with the quirks and quarks of the radio and just loved the radio anyway. But often you look at it and you kind of agree, yeah, okay, yeah, this and that is wrong, or this doesn't work, right. But sometimes you just learn to use it the way it is, and one of the interesting aspects of when we talk about this is that little "I'm wrongda," where I get tons of people saying, "Well, your review's wrong. The radio's great," and it's funny because that's where people don't listen and don't really watch a review, and you see it because people are like, "Well, I've been listening to Shortwave on it, and it's great." Yeah, did you actually watch the review correctly? What am I talking about that is a flaw? I did in that review say that it wasn't too bad on shortwave. What don't you get, or why are you not watching it properly, or you didn't watch it at all, or just part of it? The biggest problem is, and I'd like to say, wake up to everybody that says, "Well, it's great," because I want to. What I say is, it's a VHF UHF radio. It goes up to 500 megahertz, but there is no narrow FM in it. You cannot listen to the 2 meter ham band or 70 centimeter ham band at all. It doesn't have the bandwidth for it. It's stupid that the bandwidth isn't there to do that. It's stuck in wide FM, which is useless on those bands. And so that plus the fact that you know, it's useless in a place like here where there's too many signals, uh, that's where the flaws are. And they're big flaws because I, as a, owner of that radio, when I purchased it, the interesting part of it was that extended range up to 500 megahertz, which doesn't serve any purpose. You know, the airband works because it has the AM mode for that, and it works with the weather because it has a specific. And that's the funniest part. It has the proper filter for the NOAA weather, but you can't use it in anywhere else on the VHF UHF range, which is weird. So all of that together, and and I get a lot of people like, well, it's not that tiny what's written on the screen. Yeah, stop talking about that because you have no idea. If you're 20-year old and you don't wear glasses, you got no idea what it is to be 50 or 60 and needing glasses and needing to read some really small screen because there's just too much packed info on it. So, when I hear someone who's like, well, that guy's complaining about, it's perfectly easy to read. I just feel like saying, like, yeah, shut up, go somewhere else. It's like it's so stupid. Just you know, understand that it's small. And yes, if I was 30 years ago, I would have read that screen without any problems, without glasses. Of course, I didn't need glasses, and I had good vision. As time goes by, it's something that happens to most of us, and it's like you know, stop making stupid comments. It's like I feel like saying that sometimes. So, anyways, you got to enjoy. I mean, if you've got that Haranga portable and you only do shortwave on it, yeah, it works. It works. It's okay. I need to make more videos with the shortwave part of it. It's just that the single sideband is dreadfully impossible to tune. But I mean, on like listening to international broadcasts and stuff like that, it does work. Definitely works. It's that's not where I'm renting. I'm renting at the big picture. A radio has many features. A radio has many things that it could do. So look at the big picture. Stop looking at, oh well, it's just so, it's like that radio here, the Ethon. Yeah, it's crazy sexy. It's what a shortwave radio that everybody would like to want because it just looks so great. But it has major flaws. And every time somebody comes back to me and says, well, mine doesn't have those flaws. Yes, it does. They all do. They all do. But if you're not interested in knowing the truth about a radio, why are you watching a radio review? If you don't really want to know, or if you just want to make sure, you want to be happy because you paid $500 for it, be happy. And that's all, It's just that I bring out the flaws with my experience, you know? And a lot of the stuff, because some people are, there was a guy the other day who was like, well, that's your opinion. Well, you got to wait. There's opinion, but there's also part of it which is not an opinion, it's an actual fact. If I tell you it's 3 kilohertz off and that the AM filter is way too wide, that is not a personal, you know, uh, a personal comment. It's a fact. It's a fact that is visible, easy to hear, easy to check out, and when you compare it to another radio, you immediately notice it. So there's differences in personal opinions and also facts that are in there because it's a mix. Review is a mix of that. It's a mix of here are the flaws, which are fact, and here's my personal opinion of why you shouldn't buy it, but you might still want to buy it anyways, and still, and because you find it really nice, and maybe those flaws are not that much of a problem for what you do with it. um you know and of course there's always some people saying, well, you didn't turn that knob, you didn't do this. It's like, don't tell me how to operate a radio, okay? I don't need that. I know how to operate a radio. So it's just funny sometimes when you read all this stuff like that, and I don't know why people take it personally that you just add tons of negative stuff on a radio they own, and it's like I'm not attacking you. I'm just giving you the facts of that radio. But if you're listening to shortwave with it and you're happy, why are you offended? You're happy with it. You're happy with it. That's all you need to be. That's all. I mean, every radio has flaws. Some have more than others. Nothing's perfect. Even big gun transceivers are not perfect. My Yaesu FTDX10 is great. I wish the AM filter would have been, I could have had a narrower filter possible, which is not the case. And don't come to me talking about, because I get tons of replies with, well, you can play with the contour and the audio filters. And it's like, no, you don't understand. An audio filter will not fix the fact that a IF filter is too wide. And when a station is, and I got a great example that I need to make a video with. Lately, the Voice of Turkey has been on 11785. And of course, Radio Nacional Amazônia Brazil is on 11780, and both are strong. And I think it was Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday, I tuned 11785 on the Yaesu to hear Turkey, which is coming in great. But I had interference from 11780, and that is why, because 12 kilohertz is too large of a bandwidth filter to narrow two stations 5 kilohertz apart. So, my ICOM or my Kenwood R5000 do a better job at separating the stations than does the Yaesu in that case. But, you could use different other things to like what I did. I just switched to upper sideband. It moved me away from Brazil, and I could hear Turkey and use that narrower filter also, because now I'm in sideband. These are things that I noticed, because these are things that I know are important in certain conditions. And, you would not expect that from in Canadian dollars, it's a $2,000 transceiver. You would expect that. Why don't you give me the choice of the roofing filters? It's so weird. So there's all sorts of things like that. And it shows you that, whether the radio's 2000 or $50, um, there's always something. There's no radio's perfect. Some are really good. And I mean, the Yaesu FTDX10 is amazing. It's an amazing transceiver. And I have nothing to complain really about it. And, you got to understand also, what is a radio meant and who is it meant for? Yaesu FTDX10 is obviously not meant to be a international broadcast band listening set. It's not a shortwave radio per se, like we buy. It's actually a transceiver that's meant to be used mostly in the ham bands, and on that respect, there is no problem. The filters are chosen correctly, and you can fiddle and play with so many settings that it's all right. It's all right. And so, and not that many people are probably going to do AM. And if they do use their transceiver for AM, they'll just set themselves far away enough from another AM to not experience any interference. So, in the respect of being at a ham transceiver, got nothing to say. It works great. And the respect of being a shortwave radio to listen to international broadcasts, well, it doesn't happen often. Most of the time, it's fine. Right now, it's on 15580 with the Voice of America giving a good signal. Works fine. Nothing to interfere on each side. So for most part, and for most broadcasts that I listen to, it's fine. It's fine because there's not that many stations close by today. It's not like in the 80s. That same transceiver in the 80s, I would have been maybe a little, I'd say a little pissed off at the fact that it's like that, because in the 80s, all the stations were stacked 5 kilohertz apart. Now that 12 kilohertz filter would have driven me mad for sure. That's the reason the Kenwood R5000, I changed the filter, the crystal filter that they have in it. A stock is a little too wide. It like measures like 9 kilohertz ish. Well, in 1989, that was a huge deal because so many stations were packed together that you had to, it was kind of not fun because you would either have to choose single, upper lower sideband, or um, which you don't necessarily always want to do. And that's pushing you towards, okay, well, I need that AM filter that they are selling, which is much smaller, registered at, roughly 6 kilohertz. Now that helps in reducing the adjacent interference on each side. So in today's world, it's okay. And in today's world, it's fine. It's not a huge deal. It's not a huge deal for me in today's shortwave world. But it is a curiosity of thinking, why did you design it like that? You can switch between the roofing filters and sidebands, or and that's fine. But you can't switch the roofing filters on AM. I okay. You built it in that way. It's so weird, you know. You got filters. Why not have the ability to switch between them in any mode you want? So it tells you that no radio is perfect, and that I'm pretty good at observing a lot of the flaws of radios. Um, there's been a couple of guys that came back to me that do radio reviews through email, and it's fun because when I review a radio, pretty much most of the reviews I do are pretty much in agreement with others that do serious reviews. And they'll come back to me and they'll say, you've got good observations of exactly what it is. But I do get from a few times, like, wow, you've actually pinpointed a couple of things I had never noticed on that radio that you immediately saw while you were playing with it. And I guess it's the experience of 40 years of playing with tons of radios, and even more. I would honestly say that before I got in this channel, my experience was probably not enough to notice that much on receivers yet. And that is something I developed because I started buying a lot more radios. And by buying more radios, it enabled me to see the flaws and the differences between each of the radios, where to a point you get to, okay, look at that. That radio doesn't do that well compared to the other one. And of course, there's the knowledge that goes with it. So I'd say before I started this channel, I had a decent idea of what a good radio is, but I am, 10 years later, I am much more knowledgeable, and I observe a lot more each radio, how it performs, how it sounds, and how it can cope with all the different shortwave, problems that we can have, like overload. So it is definitely an interesting thing to talk about and to check out. But it takes, if you own one radio, and you can have knowledge, but if you own only one radio, you might not actually know or notice what I'm talking about because you haven't experienced it, or have experienced differences between multiple receivers. And or you might have 2 or 3 radios, but maybe you've chosen 2 or 3 good ones, which don't really have that much of a difference. You'll see slight differences in audio and things like that, but it's when you start, like I have here, start getting into dozens and dozens of radios that you start noticing, oh, look at that. That one's crappy doing this or that, or SSB isn't that great on this one, or difficult to tune, or so, there's all sorts of things that come into play in the radio. And it's a lot of fun though you know, to check out, and definitely something interesting to look around. And every time I have a new radio, it's kind of interesting to see the differences. Okay. I lost part of the chat because I went down too fast, and I think I lost maybe a good 20 minutes of the first part of the chat that I don't see. So if I don't say hi, say hello again. Dan V, nice to have you here. And 8WJZ in Ohio. Matt MDK2 from Denver, Colorado. Nice to have you here. TVDXer, ça va bien? J'espère que tu vas bien. David's Radio Room, nice to have you here. Archie's Olive Crafter's Kitchen, nice to have you on board. We have Chuck Schreiber, nice to have you on board from Texas. N5 KVO. And breezy and 70 Fahrenheit. Here it's we're getting the rain just started about half an hour ago. We're expecting a lot of rain. We have a rain warning here, and it's complex because here, because of the melting snow, the rivers are all already pretty high level. So with all the rain that's going to fall, a lot of places are kind of a little, looking at the rising water of the different rivers and lakes around Montreal. So we have Rob, the audio check guy. Nice to have you here. We have Robert Cross. Nice to have you on board. Richard Califano. Nice to have you on board. Meta Lunar from Connecticut. Nice to have you here. Rob likes my haircut. Cool. I don't know how many people told me like my haircut was great this week. Teverde, nice to have you here from Barcelona, Spain. J Projects, nice to have you on board. Rob says, yeah, M&Ms. It's just crazy. You can't stop eating those. I used to have a big M&M dispenser when I was, I don't know, I got it as a birthday gift or something. I was like 20, 22 years old. Man, I ate so many M&Ms out of that thing. But back then I was only 150 pounds, which was fine. Today, if I eat too many M&Ms, it's kind of a problem. Skip, nice to have you here. N2EI. And John Beckham, nice to have you here from Northeast Florida. Well, happy birthday in advance, Robert. You're getting yourself a radio as a birthday. VA3JPX, nice to have you on board. DX Winger, nice to have you here from Southeast Pennsylvania. We have Trevor, nice to have you here. We have K6SUD, nice to have you on board. ManMax 2069, nice to have you here. Skip is from New Jersey, of course. Chess Tank. By the way, Skip, I was actually looking at old monitoring times, and I was reading a couple of your articles from that talked about propagation and stuff in the in some of the monitoring times from the 90s. It's kind of interesting to see. Chastang, nice to have you on board from Louisville, Kentucky. Whoops. Okay. Brad Shaver, nice to have you on board. I got something new that appeared here. It tells me that ads are going to play for some of you. I've never seen that before. It just says, oh, there's going to be ads for some of you. Oh, okay. Andy New, nice to have you on board from Bristol, UK, M7 CUN. We have David's radio room. Imagine kitty barf with 5 cats. Oh God, yeah, I can get it. Or it's like waking up in the morning and you didn't know that like Paul puked somewhere and you put your bare foot on it. Disgusting. Um, Greg Scher, nice to have you here from Southern Illinois. Yeah, I'm wondering, Skip, if Paul might have eaten something that he should not have outside. I did think his first puke was a airball, but his second puke seemed to have grass in it. But idea workbench. Nice to have you on board. And what else do we have? Yep, good news about Paul the cat. Jari Markkanen, nice to have you on board from Finland, Jari. Um, Greg, nice to have you on board. And says eats the whole bag is the problem. Yep, that is a major problem. That in M and M's for me, it's M and M's and chips. If I and like potato chips, because I know in the UK you guys call it chips or fries. Um, so Jay Watterson 69, nice to have you here. He's not obese, he's just furry. Leo Tech, nice to have you here. James Binder, nice to have you here. Keegan DXer from Northwest Arkansas, nice to have you here. What do we have? What do we have? RJ Dakota, nice to have you here from Wentzville, Missouri. Robert Varner, nice to have you here. KC2TEL, rainy day in New Jersey. We have Terrence, nice to have you here. KD2ANN from New Jersey. What else do we have? Jay Dakota, didn't know your cat Paul was not well. Yeah, he's pretty good now. David, Radio Room, cranberry juice tastes great with lemon lime soda too. Yeah, well, actually the sparkling water I have is lime flavored, so it's cranberry juice with lime flavored sparkling water, which tastes great, and I like the little tingling from the sparkling water. John Hummelnold, the VE5JHN, nice to have you here. Michael, nice to have you on board. What do we have? Richard Wagner, nice to have you on board, and has a RC Cherry Cola. Toast to Paul's health. WA9302SWL, nice to have you here. Andy News, I have read rave reviews about the Belka DX radio. Have you come across it? So I've not tried it yet. I don't own one. Probably I should. I've heard a lot of good reviews, but I've also got a couple of people that have one that have other radios. It's a good radio from what I see. It's just from some of the comments I've seen is it's a good radio. But it's not better than other radios that are good radios, but it's a good radio. Because I see some people saying, well, this is the best radio ever built. And I got a couple of people that do reviews that came back to me and say, it ain't better. It's good. It's a great radio. As being the best radio out there for it's not according to the people making reviews, but it's good. And I know that, and I've almost everybody that I see that have one seems to be extremely happy with it. So, maybe I should get one and maybe talk about it. We'll be checking that out in the. We're looking at the funds available in the radio sphere, because every time you guys donate something, either through the chat here in the super chat or in PayPal, I apply it specifically for radio purchases. So maybe I should use I should get one of the Belka. But I know that everybody that has one seems to be extremely happy with it. Radio Kid, nice to have you here from Washington, D.C. suburbs. Um, we have, Chastan cranberry juice with a bit of lemon juice, good for the kidneys. So I'll be a healthy guy, and I'll be bothering you guys with live shows until I'm 100 years old. Brad Shaver, nice to have you here. Man Max, I bought a few non-shortwave pocket radios. Probably going to be buying one more. Then it's strictly shortwave radios from there on out. Mark Cancelera, nice to have you on board. Marco from England. Art, nice to have you here. K2ADC in New Jersey. Metal Lunar says, I thought Texan was coming out with a new shortwave radio. It looked like the PL330, but it doesn't have SSB. But I haven't heard any more about it. Do you recall any recent new Texan models? Yeah, you're talking about the Texan PL320, which is kind of like a PL330 without SSB. I've not purchased it. I don't see why I should get it. But I don't know. Maybe I should. I don't know. But the PL320 is the that model. So and I think it's available. If you look around, you see the Texan PL320. But for the difference in price, it's like you better just jump on a 330. That's it. At least you got SSB, you got much better tuning capabilities. Mark, nice to have you here. W9 USO, Wisconsin. Nice to have you here. KW1161, nice to have you on board from Tucson, Arizona. I don't remember which ham call this week. I should have noted down. Guy makes a contact with me on FT8. And, on FT8, you can edit the text that shows up and put whatever you want in it. And once I finished the contact with the station, which is U.S. station, the phrase that came up through the FT8 through the software was "Love your shortwave shows." It's like, oh, okay. I need to find this call and. Rob says, yes, I think Mr. Paul could use a diet. Can't hurt. Yep, definitely. J. Watterson 69, but have you tried it with a Degen 31 MS? God. Mad Max says, bought a Sony ICF P26 and a Sony ICF P27 and an $8 Vivitar pocket radio from the dollar store. The Vivitar isn't great for listening to broadcasts, but it's great at tracking down interference. I would have done the same. If I go to a store and there's a $10 radio, I have to buy it. I can't not buy it. Actually, I went down to downtown Montreal. There's a store called Layton Audio, and that is where I had purchased in the 90s my Grundig Yacht Boy 400. And there were like seven or eight different stores downtown Montreal that you could go to and that they had radios. And I ended up Layton Audio is pretty much the last one that exists still that sells, TVs and hi-fi systems and so on. And when I passed in front of it, I thought, do they still actually sell a shortwave radio? And I was very curious. So I went in, and they do. And there's a reason why. They seem to be a distributor for Sangean because they had a full presentation with tons of Sangean AM FM radios. They had two HD radios with AM FM with HD radio from Sangean, and they had the Sangean ATS 405. So I was like, oh, they got a shortwave, the ATS 405. And I didn't have time because I was like, I didn't want to bring anything with me. I wanted to not have, but when I go back, they have a $40 radio that is a multi-band shortwave and of a brand I've never heard before. So once I go back there, I will go and purchase that radio and check it out. I don't remember. I don't even remember what brand it is, but it's. I remember. I just saw the box. I saw it was a multi-band receiver shortwave, and I saw that it was a brand I had never heard of before. So I'm gonna check that out. Others Out of Crafters says I took criticism the other day about my comments on the GE Super Radio 2. Based on them, I was told I must have it dud. No, I have other radios that outperform it. People get so emotional. Yeah, I got the three. The three is a crappy radio. Honestly, the Super Radio 3 is a crappy radio. It's sad because I bought it based on people just love it, so it must be no, it's crappy. As for the two and the one, I know that the one, I think the Super Radio one is, I think for most people, the winner, the one that is the big performer. Um, as for the two, I've heard that there's a few things, including, I don't know, there's a few things you can maybe do to improve. You know, there's there's people, I don't know, they get into they read, oh, it's good, and they use it and they say, oh, it's good. I got all of these things with it. But I don't know. It's crazy. But people take it too personal. It's a radio. Hook 911. The Hanrongda 747, which is a very small. I don't have it close by. I don't think so. I would show it to you. I think I don't have it close by. Is it close by? By chance? I'll check it out here. Oh, I got it. Here we go. This is the radio I'm talking about. This works fine on shortwave. Yeah. But it doesn't do anything else good. And that's the thing about this radio. Yeah. Harvey Baudet. Any recommendations for a shortwave radio? Well, how much you want to spend, first of all? You got some really good stuff from the Texan PL330, the XH Data D808. There's a higher end Texans. There's a lot of interesting good radios out there. Kennedy W1161. Yeah, 600 is a major fault for a $200 radio. That is from the start, absolutely. Jay Watterson 69 says, so true. Like the people who swear by the Ethon Red Cross radio. In my experience, all the Ethon, I got a couple of Ethon emergency radios. They were all crappy. Neil Rigby, nice to have you here from UK. Radio Kid, Amazon just delivered the XH Data D219. Opening the box. Cool. Have fun. Just thinks some folks are not happy unless trying to argue or stir up crap. Miji, nice to have you here from Central Virginia. RJ Dakota says, it is true. It depends on what you want with this particular receiver and why. Thank you for explaining and exposing stuff like that so I know what to expect and stay away from. Yeah, because, an example like this radio, if the only thing that you do with it is listen to shortwave and you don't really Maybe you don't have the knowledge or don't grasp that, it goes up to 500 megahertz and maybe there could be interesting stuff to listen to. And if you've never gone into those ranges, you don't know what to expect. Um, you might be happy with this. You might be happy. You're like, I'm listening to Radio Romania. I'm listening to, yeah, okay, yeah, I get it. Um, but if that's what you do and you don't have the knowledge for the rest, don't come in crap comments on what I say, because you're commenting on a knowledge I have you don't. And there's way too many people actually like that are not knowledgeable, but will still tell you you're wrong. And you're like, yeah, well, if you don't know what you're talking about, maybe you shouldn't comment. It reminds me of when I was a tech guy. One of the things that helps a lot sometimes, because you don't always know exactly what's happening. It doesn't matter. Any good tech guy will tell you, yeah, sometimes Googling and finding, blog posts or blogs that talk about it are kind of fun. But the problem with a blog like that is you go and you write down that you have, that error message with that software and you do this. And out of 100 comments, there's only one that is useful that does fix the problem. The 99 other ones, a big part of it is you should just, shut up and not comment or give your point of what we should do, because you're way off and you don't know what you're talking about. But for some reason, people are, I don't know, some want to just join in and say, oh, yeah, well, did you restart your, look, I'm a tech guy. You restart your PC is not an option. Okay. But I think it's the same with this, is like, to understand what I'm saying, you might need more knowledge. Maybe you're not knowledgeable enough to really grasp exactly what I'm saying. And like I was saying, there's a lot of, I don't really listen, it's like I see some comments sometimes and I'll just reply. And some people sometimes do reply to them, and it's like, so you really didn't watch the video, because he says, I say that at that time. It's like, watch the video. So, um, Radio Kid, G Super Radio 3 is great to listen to. Zoomer 740 AM. It's good in if you're like listening to a local AM station and you want to have good strong audio, yeah, it's good for that. But it ain't that great of a radio for the purpose of what it's advertised as, a high performance AM receiver, you know. Paul MCC, very pleased with the Texan PL 880. Greetings from Ireland. Nice to have you here on Great Radio. Let me know this case. The one I find turning the radio on is a good indicator of its quality. Yeah, tune around. Yeah, people have a hard time when they tell them that something you bought is not that great, Jay Waterston 69. Elmo FX09. Um, EBSTVE. Is that the Spanish radio? Radio Exterior de España? Celebrating 5 years tomorrow. Andy New, bandwidth filters is what makes Texan Portable such good value for the money. And one of the things you got to do also is to be able to, by the way, I'm 30 minutes behind in the chat. I'm going to try to catch up as fast as possible. And one of the things also I get from time to time is somebody coming over and saying, um, I compared the Texan PL330's bandwidth with my, you know, um, ICOM transceiver, and they're really not that great. It's like when I hear that, I feel like saying, why are you taking the time to compare the size of bandwidth filters of a $70 radio against a $2,000 radio? It's useless. It's obvious they're not the same quality and the same shape fact or form factor. So don't say they're crappy because of that. They're actually really good for a $70 radio. Look at the other way around. Because yeah, I won't compare, a 3 kilohertz filter from a Texan PL330, or even the PL990, with the same 3 kilohertz roofing filter that I have in my Yaesu FTDX10. They're not at the same level. The one in the FTDX10 is an actual crystal filter. The shape and the form factor that we call of the filter and the slopes are definitely better defined. But did you just stop for a moment and think that how many of us would have enjoyed having a radio, a portable radio that's not expensive in the 70s or 80s that have so many choices of bandwidths? How useful that would have been back then? So yeah, that's the other thing that I have a hard time. It's like, why are you comparing a $3,000 radio with a $70 radio? I don't do that. I will do it, and the only reason I will do it is to show you it's a capable portable, because it gets what the big gun radio does also. But I will not start comparing the filters or any other type of when somebody comes back to me and says, well, that Texan bar graph level indicator is crap, it's always maxed out. Yeah, I don't care. You can hear if the signal quality is good or not. Stop looking at indicators. I mean, even on a big gun radio, you know what, a lot of them are off. So you take it as it is and as what you get. But you look at the signal to noise ratio. I get a lot of comments on that. I never use it. I don't care. It doesn't indicate well on any radio. Any radio doesn't indicate well. And I find there's too many people focusing on that. It's like, well, that bar graph isn't exactly precise, and it's like, I don't care. You have ears to listen to the quality of the signal that you're receiving. That's enough. I'd rather have the clock displayed because I want to know what time it is in UTC while I'm tuning around than those indicators. I even the Yaesu. I don't look much at the S meter on the Yaesu here. I'll see it giving me a signal, but the problem is I can kick in filters, not filters, but amplifiers. Like, if I'm on 15580, I'm getting something that's S7, S8, but I can, go here and say I'm going to put the amp. So here, I just boosted the amp. I'm at S9 plus 20. Which one is the exact real signal strength? You know, you take it as it gives you a general idea of how strong a signal is, maybe against another, but stop giving too much importance to it. I think people are focusing on the wrong things. Another example is somebody the other day was, well, I can't, the Texan PL990 is really, really um, not very good quality. Every time I turn it on, I have to recalibrate to be precise. And I answered back, do you realize that a $200 ish radio to be precise like it is, it's pretty amazing. And his comment was, well, I don't have to do that on my St. Gian or whatever. And I said, your St. Gian that you are using doesn't have the precision that your PL990 has. PL990 actually displays up to 10 hertz precision. Do you realize how amazingly precise that is? And you can't compare that to once again a $2,000 transceiver. It is $2,000. I hope it's precise. And even that, look at the ICOM ICR30 wideband receiver. It ain't even precise. It's like 40, 50 hertz off. And that thing is an expensive little piece of equipment. It ain't a problem. People worry too much about it. And I see too many people pinpointing things that are not important. Oh well, I turn off the radio, it doesn't shut down immediately. It takes about half a second. Should I return it? It's like, are you kidding me? Does it turn off or not? That's the question. Even if it takes half a second, does it turn off? It's like I see these sometimes. I'm like, wow, you're focusing on so many useless details to try to. It's almost as if you're searching for this radio might have a flaw and I have to return it. Well, not a lot of radios we get have flaws. I got to say that. It's just funny. It's like I have a hard time grasping why the focus on so many useless things when people play with the radios. Danny, Shortwave and Radio DX, nice to have you on board. The rain just started here in Montreal. Andy News says, remember the 3.0 Kenwood R1000 when a simple mod was necessary to make the narrow bandwidth more usable. Yeah. And I mean, these radios were expensive at the time, Rotten Animal, nice to have you here. Shortwave is important to you. Do you ever think about getting a place outside the city so you can put up many antennas and get better reception? It definitely would be a fun thing. It's something that's very difficult to achieve because prices of housing and prices of anything, even far away from the city, are now extremely, extremely high. And as far as for living, I'm a city guy. I will probably always live in the city of Montreal because I'm really a city guy. But I think I can compensate by taking my radios to the park where it's pretty quiet. So take a walk, go somewhere. But it'd be nice. I definitely would love to have a little place up north where it could be quiet conditions and I could go to weekends or stuff like that. That definitely would be fun. Dwayne from Tennessee, nice to have you here. What do we have? Just looking at comments. Okay, Joseph, nice to have you here from San Francisco Bay, California. We have so let me just go back down here. Okay, catching up. Man Max, I think the only other radios I'm going to get is a PL330 and a vintage shortwave radio. KSA Forever says XH Data D808 radio. I found it good on shortwave airband, but I could not pick up any frequencies on SSB for USB LSB. I have almost 100-meter wire above 3-floor building. I can listen to very far frequency on shortwave. You simply haven't listened to the proper frequencies for the upper lower sideband, because you're gonna get tons of signals on upper lower sideband. Yeah, focus on the ham bands. Look at what are the frequencies of the different amateur bands, and also there's a lot of utilities out there. Look at some of the videos I have. I should do more this week, maybe, of tuning around a little bit on a single sideband. I know it helps a lot of people, but you're definitely going to hear stuff. Definitely going to hear stuff. Quick Strike, AB3IY. Richard, nice to have you here from Delaware. Hawaii? Is there a place called Delaware, or you're just saying hi? It's from Delaware, right? Man Max, you could bring up the live stream on another device and roll back the stream, which will roll back. Oh, yeah, I should. Because I missed the first like 20 minutes of the chat. It kind of just vanished because when I scroll down, it kind of erases part of the older part of the chat. So nice to have you here. Skip into EI. Charlie Warman, nice to have you on board. How can I get one of those maps you have on the wall? That's bought it on Amazon. Just go on Amazon and put world map. You're gonna see this one. So KW1161 says hot and sunny in Tucson, 93. That's too hot for me. Too hot for me. Unless I'm at the beach or at the pool. Drawn F says I had to use a pre-selector in the 80s. So many strong stations and harmonics. Yep. And some radios were built with that because, like the realistic DX300 302, they have the pre-selector, and the reason they added that is simple. It is a crappy radio, and being selective and avoiding all the overloading and interference from everything else. So they added that pre-selector, which looked cool, but in reality, it was to kind of cope for a bad radio, basically. So it kind of made it better because it could narrow it down a little more. So Leotech from Italy, nice to have you here. John F from Switzerland, nice to have you here. Brad Shaver, nice to have you here. Key 6SUD, Bad ID Workbench, nice to have you on board for your first stream at KF5 JCL. You have often bad ideas on the workbench. RV Baudet, nice to have you on board. The Shortwave Archive. Is the St. Gian HDR14 good for FM E-skip? And what part of the FM band should I look for FM E-skip? It's great. It's great. I actually used it last year for an opening where I got that FM station from Florida in Spanish. It is great. E-skip. E-skip. Let me just go down a little faster to chat. And we're gonna talk E-skip anyways, because I want to talk about it for the 6-meter band also. Jim Gordon, nice to have you here from Scotland. RGA Dakota, when I had a Panasonic RF 2200, there was an inbox offer for a matching pre-selector, which worked well. Upstate Shortwave, nice to have you on board. So Greg loves M&Ms. Man Max says, as soon as I hit 43, I started gaining weight. I used to hover around 150. Yeah. My weight gain started, I'd say, in the mid 30s or later in the 30s. Until about 35, I was like steady at 150. And then it started, and now forget it at 54. It's like at 54, you eat too big of a breakfast and you just gain 5 pounds. John Beckham says, very interesting video on broadcasting over the poles versus east-west. Thanks. Yeah, well, it's something that we don't think about sometimes, that where are the signals actually coming in from? It's like WJTX, the WSJTX software for FT8. It gives you a bearing. Will tell you, well, you're getting that from 68 degrees azimuth. Well, the actual city or place where the station is, yes, might be at 65 degrees azimuth, but the signal you're hearing or catching or the ham you're contacting, the signal might not come from there. The actual signal, like an example, if I make a contact with Italy on 20 meters at midnight, it's dark here. The darkness path from here to Italy, if we go through the azimuth that, you know, the software will tell me, would probably be impossible. So you're pretty sure, and that's mostly what happens. And you'll hear actually hams in Europe saying that they're doing this. They are actually going over the North Pole in the summer to hit North America. So if you hear a station on 20 meters from Italy, from any European country, chances are that signal is going over the North Pole to here, not east west. You're actually getting something coming from the north in North America. Danny Shortwave had to pull the trigger from another radio from AliExpress. Guangsheng UV-K5 UVHF UHF handheld transceiver. Has NOAA weather alert too, under $30 total. Sounds like a kind of a spin-off of the Biofang. Joseph, cats love grass. Some stores sell kitty grass. Most cats will munch some down if you bring it home. Seems to be good for their digestion, ultimately. Yeah. Paul the cat, I often see Paul the cat in the backyard munching on grass. Shortwave archive. Sounds like YouTube is starting to put ads in the stream. Some other streaming platforms have ads in the middle, like Twitch. So yeah, it's brand new. I've never seen that before. I get a pop-up on my screen with a little kind of a little progression bar that says there'll be ads in 1 minute. It's like, oh, that's new. Plain old potato chips. Yep. Thomas, tomorrow. Nice to have you on board from Jersey. Any idea as to why I can't hear AIR on 9620 between 1730 and 1930 anymore? I'm stumped. Are they still on? It could be a change in the propagation conditions too. When's the last time you heard them? Just out of curiosity. Let's check 9620 here. Whoops. 9620. So yeah, All India Radio is still there. French to Europe. It could be just changing propagation, or they could have some problems. But in the like Matt says, in the last week, propagation has been very bad because of the solar wind speeds and also the big geomagnetic storm. Remember, shortwave isn't a static thing. It's not like AM/FM radio. You're not gonna hear every station every day, like clockwork. Depending on propagation, sometimes it can happen that for multiple days in a row, a station you listen to isn't coming in because of the propagation conditions. PL330 is an amazing little portable radio, I can tell you that. Leotech has the XH Data D808, great radio. Kenneth, nice to have you on board from South Louisiana. If you have a shortwave radio and a dog or a cat, you're perfect. Quick Strike, do you think they'll ever get their act together on the Ethan Elite satellite? Nice to have you here, Richard, AB3IY. I don't know. I don't know up to what point they want to change anything on that radio. I doubt they will do modifications or good modifications in any way on that radio. And even if they would, I think it's too late now. They've made the big mistake of releasing a radio that's really not that great and very expensive. So What else do we have? Let's go down. Let's go down and try to catch up. Alexander, show all your radio receivers and tell us about them. Yeah, we've did that in the past. I need to. I think we're maybe due to that, and we're gonna go and talk about some of the kind of show you all the radios I've got and the stories behind them. I haven't done that in a long time. I think we're gonna do that maybe next week or the week after. Let me prepare myself because I've got a lot of radios. So yeah, that maybe next week we're gonna check it out. Do a special. Let's talk about the radios I own. Mickey Dalmage, nice to have you here from Shorewood Park, Alberta. Ray Boyle, nice to have you here from Stockport, Britain. And I think after the interpretative dance version of Moscow Nights, you should receive an Oscar. Oh, man. Harvey Baudet, can you give us a quick tour of your equipment? Um, I have a lot that more than what's here on display, but if I go and mm, I'd say the main radios I use, of course, I have my ham transceiver, which is I think it runs at least 12 hours a day. So my Yaesu, which you see the screen here, but the Yaesu is actually right there. So it's right here. So that's my main transceiver. Um, I use a lot of the Texan receivers, like the Texan PL 990 or a H501 is one that I go to all the time. But I use a multi-tool radio. I think what, hang in there, and if you're on next week, we're gonna tour radio. I'll have the radio tour, and we're gonna try to go through all of that. Paul Steckler, a friend of mine bought an XH Data D109 from Amazon, arrived without a tuning knob. I mean, that knob is pretty small, but that's kind of silly. Okay. Kind of weird. Trevor, check the expiration date on any breach in batches of cat food you might have. Sometimes expire quicker than expected. Yeah, I it did cross my mind. Could I have purchased a batch of cat food that wasn't up to par to the quality that it should be? I did cross my mind also. Steve Blum just bought a Texan PL330 XH Data D808 because I couldn't make up my mind. Well, they'll have two radios that you're going to have a lot of fun to play with, each one with their own way of being a radio. So you're going to have fun. You're going to have fun. Charlie Warman says, really like the map. Yep, on Amazon. Our dad, you could put these shows on WRMI. Your product reviews, tips, and listening tricks may give this hobby an international boost. Simon Templar, nice to have you on board, says, I'm looking at the Latent Audio webpage right now. They sell a lot of cool stuff. Yeah, it's an interesting it's I think pretty much the last of its kind of store here. There used to be in that area where they are on downtown Montreal, um there used to be 6 or 7 different pretty much similar stores as that one. Like just you'd go there. I remember that was my when I would go downtown, I'd do that run. I'd do that, go to Latent Audio. I'd go to Radio Lorenz. I'd go to another one was what, Atlantic Electronic, something like that it was called. And so on. I would just zigzag because they were like all 1 or 2 corner streets apart from each other, and I'd go see what they have in shortwave receivers. So RJ Dakota says similar map at Barnes and Noble. So I guess it must be probably sold many places. Richard Wagner, yeah, Super Radio 3's bandwidth is very large indeed. Joseph Merle, nice to have you here. There is 3 versions of the D808. I tend to believe it. I have the old USB charge port featured on the original, but my shortwave SSB is the slow enter. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible that there's a that there is. I saw somebody post that he had the old charging port, but the new circuit board. So it is possible. Absolutely. Absolutely. What else do we have? Ray Boyle, how did get on the Grundig? Oh, well, so uh, what happened with the Grundig 800 that I was supposed to, that was offered, is that when I got the email was sent to me. I got a lot of emails. Sometimes it takes time for me to go through the email. So apparently, waiting 3 days for 2 days, it took 2 days to call back. 2 days was to answer back was too much, so he gave it away to somebody else. So it's like, well, okay, oh well. So that's what happens. Michi says I chose a 737 because it was simpler radio for the size. Tarek, nice to have you on board from Cairo, Egypt. ManMax, the HRD 747 had the capability to be one of the best bang for the buck pocket sized radios available, but they messed up and has issues. Yep, that's a problem. I mean, I was totally curious about that. If it could just, I'm not asking because it's for the price, it's a wideband radio. I'm not expecting too much, but if it had done at least just a minimum, maybe I would be nice to have. Adam Lozo, nice to have you here. SM from Cornwall, Ontario, nice to have you here. SI1 and NYC. I'm very happy with the Texan PL330. Noise is a problem because I live in a part of New York City with outside power lines. Still a good radio and well worth the price. Absolutely. Tarek picked up a new Arabic station called Agriculture Voices Syria, transmitting on 11840 at 03 UT via UAE. Huh, that is an interesting station. Jet Crafter, nice to have you here from Southern Maine. John, Tampa, Florida, nice to have you on board, still exploring his XH Data D808. Run an animal. I'm also a tech guy. I worked in high tech all my life. It's good to meet other techs. Yeah. And we all do it. There always is that moment where it's like, okay, I have no idea what's happening. What the hell is that error message trying to tell me? And we go on those forums because somebody somewhere got the problem. It's like, oh, look at that. Especially when they're awkward little things like, a plugin in Excel is making that other software crash. Wow. Okay. It's a plugin in Excel that makes that other software incompatible when you're using certain functions. You're not born to understand that has to be the case of what's happening right now. Jarmo Nordbank, nice to have you here from Finland. Keegan DXer says, I prefer the time in the corner while tuning on the Eton Grundig Edition Elite Executive. Timothy Gunter, nice to have you here with Get VOA Africa service on 15580. Nice to have you here. Yeah, that's what I'm listening to in the background here. Andy New says, love his Kenwood TS590 SG. Great rig, but clearly no shortwave portable. Ray Boyle, if money was no object, what radio would you buy? I don't know. I would probably buy another transceiver. I'd probably get more into something transceiver for ham radio use. But if money was no object, I don't know. I'm less, I used to be, oh wow, I want, looking at the ICOM IN radios, like the ICOM ICR 8600, for example. looking at those radios and drooling on the pages and of the magazines or whatever you see it. And I'm not as fond of the high-end radios anymore. So I'd probably get some other ham transceiver or something. Jor says Chinese manufacturers should build more bigger radios and bigger displays and buttons for use at home, not the Texan 2000 Eaton 750. These guys with big hands and bad eyes out there. Oh yeah, yeah. I get it. Why this is something a lot of guys want because they see the radio, and let's face it, we've all been there, pretty much. How many of you in the starting years of radio would see something like this and say, that looks like a good radio? But obviously, you have no idea. You're just basing your opinion on the looks of what the radio is. But in reality, you got no idea. And my first couple of shortwave radios, it was like, oh, this radio looks so cool. But obviously today I'm like, yeah, they weren't that great, you know? So it's it's yeah, I think there would be a market if you have a decently priced big radio, big, you know. And the other thing also that's interesting, and it's something I get from time to time that don't necessarily always um realize is how complex these radios are for a lot of people to operate. Miji, I'm not a fan of a clock for these radios, but thanks. Yeah, I added I can use it to post the UTC time, which is quite useful using shortwave radio. Well, that's the thing. The clock, because if you put it local time, I wouldn't care for a clock. But if a radio can display the clock at the same time as I'm tuning around, now that becomes super interesting. You put that clock in UTC, you always know what UTC it is. And if you're tuning around and looking at lists online or something to see what's on, well, you always have your UTC time visible in the display. I find that is the best use of the clock on the portable radios. Take care, Alexander. Tampa, Florida. Let me just, here we go. Try slowly getting up there. Only 20 minutes behind now. Shelly, nice to have you on board. Half a second on the tube radio would seem to be fast. Jim Gordon says you have a point about people having unrealistic expectations about some radios. We are lucky with the current radios with direct entry, digital displays, variable bandwidths. Wants the stuff of dreams. Absolutely. I mean, just look at the Texan PL330. How many of us would have loved to have something like that in the 70s or the 80s? Can you just imagine? Master Players Radio and Television plus Gaming. Nice to have you here. Rotten Animal. I have a Granite Satellite 700, but new way back. It still works great. What do you think about it? I don't know much about the Satellite 700, but must probably is great. But I don't have much info on it, or I can't really tell you much about it. Daniel, nice to have you here from Baltimore, Maryland. KW1161 says Joel belongs to the city. VT Radio, nice to have you on board. And says just got home, a big 2-day ham fest in New Hampshire called Nearfest. I'll be uploading the van in the background. unloading the van in the background. Ho ho ho! That sounds like a guy that came home with a lot of stuff. VT radio only purchase was an AM FM weather crank radio by Ethon for Lands and for $1. Sold a few things too. Charlie Warman says has the shortwave radio from Radio Shack AM FM upper lower long wave with SSB. Radio Kid's been playing with his D219 while I was talking. Wow, for $10. Impressed. Just rolled through the 35, 25, 22, and 19 meter band. It's only $10. Pretty cool. Autism radios and more channel. Nice to have you on board. Tampa, Florida says, I enjoyed your recent series this past week covering all the spectrum. Very informative. Yeah, more to come. I mean, I've just covered a slight portion of it, but more to come with, I did some in the past, but the ones I want to do now, I want to focus on not only telling you what you can hear, giving you a little, ideas of, oh, by the way, on this frequency, you'll hear that. On that frequency, you'll hear that. That frequency, you'll hear that. Specifically, so that you can actually tune an actual signal if it's there. Where in the past, I did kind of a general overlook of what it is and what's to listen to. So more to come, of course. What else do we have? David in Barcelona, Spain. Nice to have you on board. Greg, thank you for the haircut. And yeah, why not? Douglas V, amateur radio and more. First time watching content. Nice to have you here. Danielle says, did you stop using SDR and only use Yizu? No, I use the SDRs a lot. In general, it's kind of I'll have both running. I'll have my Yizu, I'll have the SDR. I have an interesting observation because Matt MDK2 in Denver, Colorado, we completed 2 bands that we were missing yesterday, a 17 meter band, and we were able to do a 80 meter band FT8 contact from Denver, Colorado to Montreal. But there's an interesting observation that we completed yesterday, because I had an idea yesterday to check something, and we're going to talk about that. So we're going to talk about eSkip. We're going to talk about the MLE30 versus NFED and all of that. Just catching up really quickly. So for monitoring, it will depend, and I'm going to talk about it, why I will choose one over the other. I like SDRs, and I will prefer an SDR if it actually receives well. And you'll see my observations in a few minutes. Jim Garden is fascinating how many Federal reviews the cheap and otherwise simple D219 is getting. It has obviously struck a positive chord with many experienced DXers too. Yeah, I'd have to order one and test it out myself. Ray Boyle, radios are the curse of the drinking class. Mr. Phillips, nice to have you on board. We have SI1 NYC says, I guess I'm lucky. Weight has been around 160 pounds since 1986. I like Italian food. Yeah, but maybe you're not eating too much of it. But, everybody's kind of body is kind of different. Then Shortwave, Radio DX says, yeah, kind of the Baofeng UV5R. Interesting. Douglas says, sometimes I hear a station clear as glass. The next day, maybe barely. Yeah, propagation is something that changes and varies all the time. And now at the high peak of our solar activity, there's a lot more of disturbances that can happen, especially with solar flares happening and so on. There's the bad side of high solar activity. It's great for the high frequency ranges. Sometimes it gives a lot more disturbances, though, on the listening experience. Yeah, well, medium wave, Keegan DX or medium wave probably was very weak with all the disturbances and the geomagnetic storms we got. What is Crafter's Kitchen? I had a guy today ask me to show my GE Searcher radio while pushing all the buttons. I told him to find one and make his own video. Okay, let's try here. Let's go down. Joey Jojo. What sort of antennas you guys using for shortwave? You start off with a wire antenna outdoor if possible. If it works well and there's not too much noise, that probably will be great. But if it's very noisy, a lot of us have magnetic loops like the MLA 30. Sorry, guys. Marco Davi. Nice to have you here from England, UK. What is the smallest shortwave radio that you would recommend? I'm looking for something to easily bring with me on air travel when I only have a small bag. I'd get a Texan PL 330. It's it's pretty small, but it's powerful and does everything that you want. And that would be probably one of the choices for a small portable. Depends on how small you mean by small, but that would be a decent one for a small radio. Thomas, tomorrow I saved my pennies and bought an ICOM 7300 3 years ago. Your Yaesu is intriguing. Can you explain why? There's the ICOM ICR the ICOM ICR 7300 is IC 7300, sorry, is a very popular rig, and it's probably one of the most popular rigs right now. Um, Not having played with one, but I have been reading a lot about it, and I've also seen many videos of hams comparing both the Yaesu FTD-X10 I got and the ICOM IC 7300. What really comes out of, there's a thing called, like, being brand loyal. I think ICOM guys often are ICOM guys and will buy ICOM guys. Like, there's Kenwood guys that will buy Kenwood stuff all the time. And there's Yaesu guys that buy, Yaesu rigs only. There's a mix of many things in here. In terms of performance, you know what? I don't think that, because they have there's a famous Sherwood list that puts the Yaesu FTD-X10 on the top of the best of the best. But I don't give too much importance to these lists. A lot of people do. And honestly, if the radio you purchased, the transceiver you got is number 1 or number 25, that difference in performance between 1 and 25 is probably so small, because let's face it, he's using measuring equipment. Yeah, with very specialized measuring equipment, you'll see differences. In actual sit down and use it and listen, it's another story. That small difference from number 1 to number 25, probably you'll never notice it. Um, People purchase on based on that a lot, and I think they're missing out on a lot more. A radio or transceiver isn't just performance when the difference is so small, it's usability. And what comes out of using, the Yaesu or the ICOM, in particular, what I hear all the time that the people talk about It's simple. All comes down to how usable it is in everyday use, how the controls are positioned. I'll give a comment on the Yesu that I hate. The amount of buttons scattered all across the tuning knob is somewhat an annoyance, because I don't know how many times I pushed a button without wanting to. And even sometimes activated features that I'm like, okay, how do I get out of this now? And I mean, I'm used to using radios. So it all comes down, I think, to what fits you best. If you're an ICOM guy or a Yaesu guy or a Kenwood guy, often the layouts are very similar. They'll be different. The radio's different, but when you sit down and use the radio, that radio feels you feel like you're at home, because that new model, the layout kind of similar. Yeah, new features, new things, a couple of new buttons, but overall, you already feel at home using it because it's familiar. And what I see mostly in comments is how unfamiliar a Nikon guy will be with a Yaesu radio because the layout's different, you're not used to it, and so on. In terms of performance, I don't think on my FTDX10 I will ever hear or do something that an Icon 7300 won't. I think they're all equal in performance, all equal in what they are. It comes down to eye candy. Part of my purchase of the FTDX10 is eye candy. Man, I love how it looks, and it's so beautiful. Of course, it's not just that. I review radios, so I did my homework before getting the Yaesu. I looked at how good it was, and of course, we all have. Unless you're a millionaire, um, I'm sure that there are probably some watching that are just millionaires and like watching just low profile, but most of us, we have to choose a certain amount of money to spend that, well, I can't really go more than that. And then you'll have, once that is done, you'll have the choice of, okay, now that I have put my level at this is the maximum amount of money I have to spend on a radio. In that range of money, what radio will be the one I'm going to get? So if I would have gotten the 7300, I'm sure I would have been happy with it without any problem. I got a Yaesu FTDX10. One of the reasons, yeah, of course, tested, as one of the top radios, kind of helps you, a little bit, especially coming from somebody that's a very experienced ham that really knows how to test a radio. But at the same time, also, because I'm not, it's not my main concern, because at the same time, I know that the differences between number one, number 10 is too small to notice. Um, I based my purchase on also the fact that I have never owned a Yaesu. I have a Kenwood R5000 receiver, so I got the Kenwood stuff. I got an ICOM ICR 8500 receiver, which means I got an ICOM. Got an ICOM portable ICR 30, ICR 20. So for me, it was like, okay, let's go to the Yaesu side. Let's check what they have, and Radio Sexy really rated highly. I had already read some of the flaws and the things that I knew about the 12 kilohertz filter in advance. I had known about a lot of people with big hands and big fingers kind of ranting a little at the buttons around the tuning knob. So I knew that I was to expect that, and you kind of get used to it at some point. Um, and the purchase was mostly that, honestly. And it's they're two different radios. And I'm, they're both good. It's as simple as that. 80K, nice to have you here from Cincinnati. Thomas Tomorrow says, I bought my Icom 7300 as my entry to the handband. Your Yaesu intrigues me. Both are solid. Why did you choose the Yaesu? So I just summed up the reason why. Shortwave archive. How many CBC AM stations are left? Not a lot of them. So here in Montreal, forget it. I hear a couple of ones from Toronto. I hear the French from Toronto. I know there's a few scattered across Canada still, but they're moving away. They're all going on the FM band slowly. Ricardo S from Portugal, nice to have you here. Simon Templar, today is vintage computer day here on my house. Found my Apple IIc. It still works. Wow, that is cool. It's fun to play with. Oh, I haven't sent you the link to that to the drive. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have to send you that today. Later today after the show, I'll send you the link to that drive for the Atari that I was talking about. Man, Max says, I remember seeing a ham transceiver that basically had a PC on the inside. It was pretty massive and expensive. It has so many buttons on it. Well, today's radios are computers. They're SDRs in a box with knobs, pretty much. So let's try to catch up. I'm 20 minutes behind, so I'm catching up. John, Tampa, Florida. Yep, been there. Hi, Candy. Ricardo, as in anything in life, looks do matter, and shortwave radios are no different for us tech guys. Yep, definitely. Simon, have my one of my two Atari 1040 STEs up and running. Pretty cool. Atari 800. Man, you got a nice choice of vintage computers there. Richard Wagner, the Uniden 1000 was one of the bells and whistles radio, but was bad. Yeah, I remember buying the old scanner, the old Radio Shack. Was it? The Pro 94, was it? On the Pro 26 was the first one that came out that went up to 1300 megahertz. You could tune 1.3 gigahertz on it. First thing you notice is that there's nothing to listen to above 900 and some megahertz at that time. And still today above a gigahertz, there's like, for a standard scanner, I'm not talking about more advanced communications receivers. And I got home and was just going nuts at how crappy it was in receive. It overloaded crazy. It was such a bad radio. But what did you do? You went there. It was the brand new model. It was on sale. It looks cool. It goes to 1.3 gigahertz. You don't know much about radios anyway. And boy, was it bad. Oh, man. I sold it I think I sold it 6 months later because I bought a Pro 92 trunk scanner from Universal Radio in the US. I needed the money for that. Greg says, how many shortwave receivers do you own? Last count, it was more than 100. With all the portables I got, last count, more than 100. Radio Kid, on analog tuned DSP sets, what is the typical shortwave tuning step spacing? Is it 5 kilohertz like fast tune on my Grunding S450 DLX? So it depends what you're tuning. But if you're tuning the international broadcast bands for searching for stations, 5 kilohertz is the normal spacing usually. If you're tuning the ham band, stuff like that, then you go into more narrower. You go like at 1 kilohertz to tune SSB. Matt, HM01 week on 13435. It's interesting that they have been on different frequencies now, but neither Preom or any online schedule source I know that reflects that. They all say it should be 16180. Huh. It's interesting that Preom, being the place we go to, um, um, doesn't have that. Pretty crazy. Well, now we know they're used because if they go to the trouble of changing their frequencies, that means that there's somebody somewhere listening to that. We always wondered for a long time, are they just, there and that's it? But now I think we know that they're used. Um, what else do we have? Let me just Adam Lozo, what advancements do you think will become features and products over reasonable futures? I think a lot of it is going to mostly be the advancements that the computerized technology can bring in the processing of the signals and maybe helping us. We already talk about digital noise reduction, how it actually impacts and has it's pretty surprising. On the Yesu, I have that, and yeah, sometimes it can help, but how it could be implemented even in cheaper radios at some point. So Ray Ball or Flex Radio RF Viagra. You know what? Today we talked about the Flex radios, and today they were expensive, they were great, but they're not they're not you know amazing receivers that get stuff that you don't hear on other radios that are other good radios. Ron Nanimal bought a Itachi worldwide receiver model KH3100 at yard sale for $5. It's a big radio and gets good reception. Check out those yard sales. Definitely. It's the first thing I do. A yard sale, or any church that do, that have these flea markets and stuff. That's the first thing I will do. And you never know. You can get things like these old. It's a Toshiba little radio. I haven't done videos on it in a little while. I need to use it. Definitely, you find stuff. Definitely. I always look for radios when I see those. Douglas got his first international contact on a 10-meter band to Southeast Canada. Cool. Let me just go down fast. Marco Davi says also checking out the Belka All Mode. What else do we have? W5KY Jesse, nice to have you here. Says I've got ICOM and Yesu, love them both. MDK2 says a guy at ham radio outlet compared it. Guys who are into just Ford, Chevy, or Dodge Ram. Yeah, it's brand loyalty, and we see that a lot on ham radio. People that are and will always be Kenwood guys or ICOM guys or so on. Daniel, I favored Yesu because of the features today, using FT1000 920 AM and FT847. So pretty cool. Carl Icon, Freeman 26555, lower sideband Spanish speaking stations, not sure from where. Yeah, lots of stuff coming from, like south of the US and Central America on that range of frequency. Douglas, yeah, sometimes the buttons are way too sensitive, definitely. Daniel says agree, performance is equal. Yeah. Matt says I'd like like my ICOM IC7100, and I have a feeling that I wouldn't have any trouble learning to use other modern ICOMs. So I definitely would be more likely to buy another one for that reason. There's a lot of that going on. It's look at Kenwood. I remember looking at Kenwood transceivers, and I got the receiver, which is a Kenwood R5000, and looking at the layout of the buttons and saying, "Wow, you know, just using my Kenwood R5000 receiver, I would not have much problem adapting to a Kenwood transceiver because the layout was so similar." You know, Matt says, fortunately, Am Radio Outlet has display rigs all hooked up so you can play with them when shopping. And I'm fortunate that there's one here in town. That is cool. That's nothing better than playing around. That's the big problem here is I can't play with a radio. There's nowhere I can do that here. You have to look online and you have to look at what people are saying, and then you buy your stuff from your Radio World in Toronto or things like that. I got to tell you, John Beckham, the ATS 25 is high candy to me. Yeah, it is somewhat. Eh? It is. I agree. I agree. Southern Illinois shortwave on all of these new receivers. Smaller is not better sometimes. Just because you can make something small doesn't mean it's a good idea. The smaller, the more ergonomic issues come into play. And I think a lot of the small radio are not necessarily small because they want you to have a small portable. There's money involved. The bigger the receiver, the more expensive you get in, the body of the radio itself, because you have to build a bigger radio. And if you want to have a bigger display, it costs more on the display. And there's all sorts of things like that are considered. And I'm sure that there are more small portables, mostly because they are less expensive to produce when they're small. Because we would have big radios, and one of the reasons there were big radios in this in our past is simple. Without the amazing integrated circuits of today, a lot of the layout of radios in the 70s and the 80s were, if you had to make that PLL circuit, you didn't have a chip for that. You actually had to put the parts together on the board to create that PLL circuit, which took an amount of space. And then you had all the different parts of the radio. Everything was in a layout of parts. So it the circuit board took a lot of place. So you had to do a big case, and it was a big radio. It's really now that we have, that silicon integrated ZSP chip, which is a radio on a chip. I mean, you just put the extra parts needed for it to work well, and you don't, you got a little small circuit board that is a radio and does it all, and you don't need a big box to put it in. So the manufacturers will be in the mode where, well, if the circuit board's this big, we're going to make the case for this big of a circuit board. But they're not going to say, well, the circuit board's this big, we're going to put the big radio like this with that small circuit board in it. So but I don't know, it'd be fun if somebody would do a big radio, I think. Andy New, Icom are popular partly because the menu system is similar on all the models. If you upgrade from 7610 from a 7300, you'll be familiar with most of it immediately. Yeah. And it's the same for, I look at the Yaesu FT DX101, which is kind of the top of the line there. You look at the menus. I looked at some videos. When they're in the menus, it's like I swear I would be in the FTDX10. It's like, wow, okay, same menu system with, of course, some added stuff in it too. Ricardo says, oops, I lost my spot. Here we go. Let me just get back where I was. I'm getting there. So we're going to talk a bit about eSkip in a few minutes. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. So Ricardo S said, got very lucky in recent flea market, scored a €10, a Siemens RK621 10-man pocket radio. Actually, a rebranded Sangean SG789. Cool. Thomas, that was very articulated explanation. Thank you so much. Our design crafters, I've never minded smaller buttons on a smaller radio, accepting the compromise in design, but small buttons on a large radio, no. Large radios needs large controls. Yeah, definitely. Seven Templar things in advance. It sounds interesting for SD hooked up to. Yeah, the one that I have here on the Atari is you just that one that I have. You plug a USB thumb drive. I got a 16 or 32 gigabyte USB stick just plugged into a USB port on the side, where you usually have the floppy disk drive, and that actually works as a floppy. And what happens is when you turn on the Atari, you get a menu, and that menu will actually you can choose all the images of the software or the games you got on the USB stick, and that you can download from the internet. Tons and tons of images of everything on for that. I got the same for the Amiga 500, which also is a USB stick. The Commodore 128 that I have, that one has an SD card for it, but they all work in the same way. You get a menu, and in the menu, you choose the image you want to play, and it loads like it's a standard floppy, but in reality, it's loading the file from that little drive. So I'll send you the link. When you if you purchase one, the guy's going to ask you is it for an Atari or an Amiga, because he will set it up so that it works out of the box without you worrying to put anything on it to have it work. Uh, John Utchings says, Ham a ham and have an ICOM 7610 with good antenna. Do a lot of ham work. Now interested in shortwave listening. I have a ATS 25, Texan PL 30. Have W6 LVP loops and LA 30. I want another radio. What do you recommend? I don't know. It depends what you want. If you want to have another radio, you could go into the higher end Texan like PL 990, PL 880, H501X. They have amazing audio and they're good radios. It's there's or go to an SDR if you don't have an SDR player SPDX or something like that, or an AirSpy HF Plus Discovery, and dabble with SDRs, which is a lot of fun. That would actually send you to another dimension in radio listening. So Voice of America still coming in on 15580 pretty well. Um, so let me just go. Robert Osborne, nice to have you here. Receiving Radio France on 11995. Sadly, my high school French makes it hard to translate. Shortwave archive. Do you have any cassette tapes of shortwave stations that you plan to transfer to digital? Yeah, I got a box here that has probably 50 or 60 tapes. Not all of it has shortwave stuff on it, but there are some in it, and I need to take the time to change that. Thomas, a great analysis. The ECU looks more intuitive, and yeah, it's I don't know. It's I think it's all depends on everybody, basically. Simon Templar says, I'm not loyal to any brand. I had Kenwood, Icom, Yaesu over the 32 years of being a licensed ham, and I'm sure you liked all of them. You know, I'm not brand loyal either. Then my next purchase of a transceiver would possibly, and maybe even there's a good chance it would not be a Yaesu. I'll be something else. It could be a Kenwood. I haven't had a Kenwood since the Kenwood R5000. Why not? I'm not brand loyal on radio either. I'm not brand loyal on most things, except if that brand brings me an added value, which is a high quality of a product. I used to be brand loyal and still am brand loyal to Panasonic. I always thought Panasonic everything is higher quality. And last Panasonic purchase I have is a microwave oven. I chose the Panasonic because I thought it was higher quality than whatever other brand microwave oven. Just gonna try to catch up here a little bit. Catch up a little bit. So what else do we have here? Go down, catching up. Yep, 50. Okay. John, Tampa, Florida says, I have a Nikon ICR6 tiny ultra wideband receiver, small but loaded with feature, and is powerhouse of a communications receiver. No SSB, but still nice to use. Simon Tampar says, thumb drive has been better. Yeah, that's. I'm going to send you the link, and you can check it out. Well, then you buy two of them. If you're picking up an Amiga 500 too, you buy two of them, one for your Atari, one for your Amiga. All you have to do is open the Atari and open the Amiga, remove the floppy in it, and put that. It already comes in a frame that fits. So the circuit comes with the frame that you can screw in the computers. It fits exactly like if you'd replace a floppy drive. It's pretty nice. Pretty nice. David EA3IEK says, in my case, I'm a bit more of an ICOM fan, not only because of my good experience with their equipment, but also because their presence in aviation, which I'm also a fly-flong enthusiast of. Aha. Seven Templar, they all had to have great features, but none are perfect. Just as a white says in Montreal. You know, they're they're so the most radios are great. It's like, especially in those high end radios, it's like, I don't we I think we sometimes watch or take too much for a serious or for like, we look at numbers that somebody will throw at us that they've tested with equipment, and and I think sometimes we're just overthinking things and don't realize that, yeah, okay, well, you can say that you've got the number one radio or transceiver on that list of transceivers. Okay. But that, for me, that doesn't impress me, because for me, that is, yeah, well, I'm pretty sure I'm going to receive the same thing and make the same contacts that you do. You know, Daniel says Kenwood has limited products for radio amateurs. This year, no Kenwood booth at the Orlando Hamfest. Ray Boyle, what's the relationship between Ethon and Grundig? Are they separate companies? Grundig is just a name. It's not a company anymore. So they just purchased the name and can use it on any radio they want. So Grundig does not, exist as a radio company anymore. Adam Lozo, newbie using a single wire antenna in North America and Boston is it better to set the wire north to south or east to west? You set the wire for the lowest noise possible and forget about it after that. It doesn't matter. A wire antenna is not directional unless it would be extremely long. But if you have 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 feet of wire, you will position it to have the lowest noise possible. That will be much more important. It's like the MLE 30. It kind of is slightly directional, but not enough to be much of a problem on shortwave. And what you'll want to do on an antenna like that is just put it where and orient the antenna to have the lowest noise. That's really what you want to do. So, So, what else do we have here? What do we have here? So, okay, just wanted to talk a little bit about Sporting E-Skip and also talk about FM Skip. Keegan DXer is a big FM DXer fan. And so Sporting E-Skip is a very unusual phenomenon that happens. It's often related or seems to be related to weather. And there are periods of the year where it's actually more present. And we're getting into that, starting like mid to late May and going into summer into like July. We are going to be in that time period where that often happens, and it happens at random. So, any time of day or night, you should be aware that you can have an opening of the 10-meter band, 6-meter band, and or the FM band for DXing FM stations. That is something that will happen, and depending on how strong the Sportic E-Skip is, it can go pretty high in frequency. But usually, when you DX the FM band, you'll want to DX and search for Sportic E-Skip. You'll probably have a better chance trying the lower part of the FM band because usually that's where it starts first. So anything that's in the 88 to 90 some 92, 93, 94 megahertz, that's where it's going to start. It needs to be really, really good to go up above 100 megahertz. It's not impossible, but usually most of the DXing will be done below 100 megahertz. And Sportic E-Skip, I mean, it could be an amazing thing. You could have, thousands of kilometers of communications. I've been monitoring 6 meters here on the rig with the FT8 frequency. When I do something else, I just leave it on 6 on 5313 and, just wait, see if I get anything. The season is coming up and it's totally worked. And it's so interesting because it breaks the rules where often we say, oh, well, the high frequencies are not open, at nighttime, but you can be listening to the 10-meter band at 2 in the morning in total darkness and hearing tons of contacts and stations. It's really definitely something to look for. And I'm looking forward because I got a first glimpse of it around Christmas, did a little bit of FT8 on 6 meters. There was one opening and I found it so much fun to make contacts with on 6. So do check it out. It definitely is something that is a lot of fun. Let's check it out here. So what else? What were the changes coming to 60 meters? I'm not aware or I haven't read anything about the changes on 60 meters. Anybody have anything on that? Simon Templar says Kenwood shifted all their remaining inventory of analog to digital chips to the commercial side. They have to re-engineer the D74 HD and the D710 mobile and the V71 mobile. Huh. Okay. Kind of interesting. No, I think Grundig doesn't exist anymore. It's just a name that somebody purchased. Unfortunately, even though some of the stuff branded Grundig isn't bad, really isn't the quality that Grundig had. What else do we have? Michael, what do you think the average lifespan is on these newer shortwave radios, and what is it that goes wrong, or is it obsolete technology? Um, for the most part, if you use a radio a lot, what is probably the biggest problem is all the mechanical stuff. So the tuning knobs and the buttons and, things like that. But electronics is pretty rough and tough. And today's electronics with all the chips, I'd be surprised that text and receivers of today are still working in 100 years. And the thing is in 100 years, will they be useful for something? That's another story. But what could go wrong? The electronics, like I said, is rather tough. But parts can fail, and capacitors can go bad, and even chips can go bad. You know, but I think they're going to last a long time. I mean, I already have like the Degen D1103 and the Texan PL600 and things like that, which is kind of getting at 10 years of age now, and they all still work really well. When we take standard electronics, usually works for a long, long time before it fails. Everything fails at some point, but I think they're going to be good for a long time. Honestly. What else do we have? Adam Ablakovic says 100-watt limit. Greetings from Wisconsin. Nice to have you here. Okay. So possible change 15 watts and one channel. Huh. Okay. Reduce power to 15. Why is it interfering with some users of the band? It's a shared band. There's kind of an agreement here that the actual users of the band have priority. And so hams technically would have to get away from a frequency if it's in use, which can make it kind of difficult to do for multiple reasons. Annoying, stupid hams that refuse to give away a frequency for some reason. You look at an FT8 band. When we do FT8, the noises are kind of annoying. We kind of put the volume lower. How would you know that some user wants to use that frequency now? Um, you know, it's not overly used. Also, I've apart from the FT8 frequency of the what is it, 53, 57 kilohertz, you can't say that it's used much. Is it because somebody observed, well, you know what, not a lot of hams go there? And you need to have somewhat of a recent transceiver to have the band in it. That's interesting. I'm going to have to find more information on that. Lowering to 15 watts. That would be interesting. Kamikaze 1976. Nice to have you here from West Michigan. KW61 says, I saw a YouTube video coming. They reduced power to 15 watts. Brad Shaver, what's for dinner tonight? Homemade poutine, which is, for those that have no idea what that is, fries, cheese curds, and gravy. Yeah, speakers can fail, like Daniel said. That's one of the parts that sometimes could fail because it's a little mechanical when you use it, especially at high volume. That could happen, definitely. Sheila in Belleville, Ontario. Nice to have you on board. Hmm. So what do we have here? Yes, shared band ARRL is talking with the FCC about the 60-meter band. So yeah, could there have been some interference done also? Miji says I've switched to stock antenna on some radios for another antenna to see if that only can improve reception. Should I have a 21 feet long wire to attach as well on occasion? Rayball, in my opinion, grinding wind on the slide when they stopped production in Ireland. Yeah, and you know what? The thing with these the thing with these with grinding and when a manufacturer has a minimum of quality to maintain, it also means their products are more expensive. Um, Look at today's market. We talk about all the Chinese Texan portables that, I mean, they're great. They're great. Um, and it makes tough competition. You buy a radio for $100 that is great, and then you're wondering why should I buy a Grundig that could cost 200 and 250? That does the same thing and doesn't do it really better. You know, we are in a point now where it's the some of the markets like that, and like in radio is a difficult market. China is giving us pretty decent stuff and at a price that nobody can compete with. You know, Francis Moore, nice to have you here from Birmingham, UK. Simon Templar that says, you're making me hungry. I haven't had poutine in a long time. And I got hooked on it when I moved to Monroe. Yeah. I make two types of poutine. I make what we call here Italian poutine. There's nothing Italian in it except the fact that you use meat, tomato sauce, like the spaghetti sauce. You could use meat spaghetti sauce and put that on, the fries. Use that as the gravy on the fries and cheese curds. And but tonight is standard gravy, standard poutine gravy. Homemade fries. So that's the best poutine in the world. Homemade fries. John, Tampa, Florida loves poutine. Had a lot of it when I visited Montreal. Chest tank mashed taters, real butter, salt, pepper. Yes, sir. Daniel says Radio Cuba 5 megahertz transmission. Good. Yeah, radio. There's Radio Rebelde 5025 and Radio Vanny Cuba 5040. Trevor, there's nothing there now, but several weeks ago there was a weird broadcast on 26110. I could hear what sounded like elevator music on SDR from Hawaii to Maine. It's probably a studio to transmitter link, Trevor. On those frequencies, from about 25,700 up to 26,300, there are still a few studio to transmitter links. They are in FM mode most of the time. If it sounded a little distorted, you switch to FM mode, and you probably would have heard it really, really clear. It is to try because sometimes I haven't heard one in a while. Last time I heard one was from a station in Dallas, Texas, but and it was on 25910. But it's a band to go to and try because you will hear there are still some of those. I remember listening to WFLA in Tampa Bay, Florida, in the '90s because they were coming in really well on 25870. And I was happy to finally find a use for that FM button on my Kenwood R5000 at the time. But yeah, these are studio to link transmitters. So basically, the studios are on one part. They have to send that audio to a transmitter site. So they send that through radio to the transmitter site on those frequency ranges. They're rather low power, but when propagation is good, you can hear some. So probably what you got. Alex Kaufman, nice to have you here from Southeast Iowa. John Beckham, have you seen the Ratty RF75A, which has an app that makes? Yeah, I saw a couple of things with that, definitely. So kind of interesting. I don't know what I know that a lot of the comments I heard was that it's small, but it's kind of interesting. A radio that has an app to control is kind of interesting. Blogger Die Federal Communications Commission is seeking comments about changing the secondary allocation available to radio amateurs on 60 meters. So that's interesting. Kamikaze, what do you think of ketchup chips? We can get them here in the States, but very popular in Canada. I like those. I buy them sometimes. I like the ones, I like the Pringle cans, ketchup flavor. Pretty good. Matt MDK2 making homemade burgers with ground bacon mixed in, plus homemade fries. Ever since I discovered the cool fry method, don't have them into any other way. Um, the cold fry. I make 10 times more fries since I bought an air fryer, and actually I thought I'd use it a little bit, but I'm actually using it almost every day. It's amazing how well these go, and they make such amazing fries. Such an amazing fries. It's just great. I make 10 times more fries since then. Frank Tillman, good afternoon. Nice to have you here. What else do we have? Plug or Die, my Panasonic RF085 from 1985, still going strong. Yeah, most of these radios still work, honestly. John Tampa says WFLA Tampa, my favorite channel. Chastain Great Lakes Chip Company was as cherry tater chips. What are they? Wow, I don't know. Ray Boyle, has anyone heard the North American Yiddish pirate? What it's like? I haven't heard that. KWN61, I thought the new radio you showed at the beginning of the stream had the app. No, not that one. Doesn't have an app. Okay. So, anyways, it's kind of interesting to check out. Anybody tried Haller 836? I'm just gonna check. Okay. The doesn't seem to hear anything right now, but it could be on right now. Oh, the Y, yeah, YHWH, yeah, yeah, yeah. I've never heard that station. I've heard it reported a lot in the last um few weeks at random times, but um I've never heard it. They're often on 74, 75, or something like that in frequency. I need to try a little more. Maybe I would get him. KW 1161 bought my Cuisinart air fryer and toaster. Love it. Yeah, and I never thought I'd use an air fryer as much as I'm using mine. Anything that you take from the freezer and you need to warm up or cook or whatever, anything that needs to, anything that can be fried can easily be very good. You just, spray with a little bit of oil, or canola oil or something like that. Put it in there. It's as good as the fryer. It's pretty amazing. Matt says I can get a YHWH here, but except for a very bizarre theme song, it's just another shortwave preacher. Yeah, it sounds to be like a preacher, pretty much station. Shortwave Radio Archive on 7475, usually around 0304 ish. So maybe it's time to try it a little bit. Try it from time to time to see if it comes in or not. I've never heard. I've never heard it. I remember once seeing a post that it was on. Tried, couldn't hear anything. So Jim Gordon had some bad luck with a vintage Sony 7600 DS. Something went wrong with the DC input socket. When I went out with the set, the batteries were very hot. Short circuit. Set is now dead, even with new batteries. I would open it and check out if, because maybe it's just shorted. Maybe it's just shorted if you check to see if the socket might be, the contacts of the socket might be touching. It's just, if it's shorted, it might just be preventing the battery power from going to the radio. There also could be, because there's a circuit that controls the power on the DC socket, and I don't know if you can charge batteries off of the socket in the Sony radio, but if one of the parts got bad, it's not impossible that it just shorted and the part just burned up, which would make that radio pretty much not work anymore. If it doesn't work, what I would do, I would just first look for, is the DC socket itself shorted, and see if just it could be just that, and then it would work on batteries. But man, that's sad, especially for a Sony 7600. BMC Bike, do you know a sort of Chinese station on 21485? Could be one of the Chinese jammers. I don't know if does AIBI have anything on that. It's possible that it's a Chinese jammer that's trying to 21485. Does it? Yep, here's a Chinese jammer. There's a Chinese jammer from 10 to 11 UT. So I wouldn't be surprised a Chinese jammer, probably on that frequency. There's also 21490 from 23 to 13. A lot of the things that we can hear in Chinese on a lot of these frequencies, especially when they're a little out of band, often are CNR1 jammers that try to avoid the Taiwan station. They're trying to jam it. So, you know, bad idea. Workbench air fryers are good, but I've become a fan of my Instant Pot. Sheila, we got our first air fryer about 3 weeks ago. Love it. Makes awesome homemade chicken tenders. Yep. Yes, it's crazy. It's crazy. But I always tell my friends the name is wrong. They should not call it an air fryer. They should just call it a convection oven because it's an oven. It's just that there's a lot of fast moving hot air, so it kind of cooks evenly everywhere. But it's not a fryer. That I find that the name they give it is misleading. People think that they're buying a fryer. No, they're not buying a fryer. You're buying an oven. You know, it's just a different oven from your standard oven. Um, Levy Nathan, nice to have you on board, my friend. I think Atrazeli Crafter's Kitchen has a problem with his keyboard or something. Do you think KWN61? I saw the YouTube video last night, but can't remember the name. It went under the radio goes under many different names. Chastang, Jill is right. French fries, corn dogs, all fried foods. Wish I could deep fry in it. Deep fried Snickers. um, do you think Brother Stare has what's HAF? I'm trying to figure out the what you're trying to say. Brother Stare has. You're gonna tell me I'm gonna be. Oh yeah, okay. Blogger Die says. Oh, okay. I got it. Okay. I'm coming up. Shortwave Radio Archive. Have you heard Pirate Radio Vostochanya Zvezda on 7400 AM? He's in the Southwest US. He's on 24 hours with Russian music. Oh, wow. Really? I have never heard that on 7400. Sometimes, some stations favor a specific area. It's like, a lot of East Coast pirates are heard well on the East Coast, but almost never on the West Coast. So I'm going to try to tune it to see if I can hear something. So playing Russian music, that should be easy to identify. Take care, Daniel. So do you think Brother Stare has had an impact on other shortwave preachers as to how not to conduct themselves? I haven't heard any today with this type of delivery. I don't know. It's a delicate subject of I still remember one WWCR Ask WWCR show where the they they got kind of an email kind of telling them, how dare you have Brother Stare on because of all the things that we've heard about. And I could hear the guys at WWCR kind of saying, well, he's paying and kind of close their eyes on whatever bad thing it could have done, which I find is not very professional, and especially if you are a worldwide Christian radio. Aren't you supposed to be in much more of a have a certain quality standard of who's on the air? Let's put it like that. And it's not just religious, anything that you would put on your airwaves. But it's obviously much more of a, well, money comes in, we're gonna pretend nothing happened. I don't think it changed anything or will change anything. I think a Brother Stare equivalent of another type will probably get the airwaves if he pays for it. It's really, unfortunately. Skipwave DX, check the polarization of radios to charger. Seen a lot of adapters being sold that are positive center. Yeah, that you gotta always check before you put any adapter on the radio. Polarity is really, really important. In the perfect world, we would have all had the same darn polarity in the center and never have to worry about it. But in the world we live in, there's different polarities. I never got that. It's like, come on, you could have all had the same, not just the same polarity, the same plug. Why go and try to find the darn size of the plug? It's these are all things that I get it because they wanted to sell their own power adapter, but at the same time, it's like, come on, just making people go crazy. David AA3IEK, it seems Han Rongda has decided to name their radios after aircraft types, Boeing 787, Airbus A320. Yeah, kind of interesting. Maybe it gives them more importance or something. Jim Gordon just checked the socket. One contact fell out. Unfortunately, I'm not able to fully access the socket. I think it's one for a trusted repair technician. Just go back down here. Okay. Yeah, not everybody sees the ads what I see here in the comments. But think about it for one thing is that it's giving me my salary. Without ads, maybe I wouldn't be here. What else do we have? Run Animal have 100-year-old tube radios that I rebuilt. They work like new. Yeah, air convection. Yep. World of Radio, Glenn Hauser's World of Radio on WRMI 15770. There's some slow scan TV on 14 to 30. Canonian 61. No, that's okay. A to Z, Shortwave TV. Hello, everyone. Nice to have you here. Shortwave TV. Yeah, kind of, SSTV. KW61 says, that's for Brother Stare. Money talks. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's the biggest problem. That's the biggest problem. Everything is good with bacon. It's like with heavy cream. I was joking with a friend once, and I was saying to my friend, even cat poop tastes good with heavy cream. Thank you, Francis Moore, for the donation. It will go to a future radio. Yogi, nice to have you here. Good morning. Matt, MDK2, WW Sierra has a lot of problematic hosts. Just going to leave it at that. Yep. It's just, they're accepting money and they just shut they don't care. They just don't care. Shortwave Radio Archive going to send SSTV on 14230. So let me just put my my Yaesu on the frequency on 14230, and let me just I'm gonna start the MMSSTV software. See if we're going to receive anything. If anything comes up on slow scan television. What else do we have? John Beckham 6105 comes in very strong lately in Northeast Florida. Take care, Jim Gordon. Chastang says, I was eating an ice cream cone when you said cat poo and creams. Blogger Die says, I was shocked to learn that YouTube puts ads on channels that are monetized. Yep, it does. I remember, first of all, there's one of the channels that I have which is not monetized that I haven't put videos on in a long time. And I had read something. I was looking at one of the videos and I had noticed, like, oh, you put an ad. So even when you don't want or you're not, you know, they still do it. That's, Keegan the Xer. I got some really weak SSTV here, but it's not very strong. I would have sent a picture, but I have to re-look at my setup. My MSSTV software doesn't want to control my Yaesu anymore, so I'll have to fiddle with the setup because I would have sent a a SSTV picture with Paul the cat. But it doesn't. When I click to transmit, it acts as if it's doing it, but it's not controlling the radio. So I don't know what happened. I changed my power supply. I was using this supply here. So this is the power supply, 30 amp power supply that I was using since last October, something like that. For some reason, something happens to it. When I am transmitting 100 watts, sometimes it kind of trips. And of course, the Yaesu shuts down and restarts. So I've changed it for a 50 amp power supply that I love, and really, really finding it pretty cool. And also by putting it at 50 amps, it gives me some slack if I want to power some other stuff, and it doesn't come as hot also. So that's pretty cool. So hey guys, we're going to I'm hungry and I have some stuff to do tonight because I have to do the I have to finish up the editing of the um no, it's not a Windows update. The other software, everything works. It's really just MMSSTV that just didn't want to. 14 to 30 and upper sideband, yes, John, Tampa, Florida. So I have to finish a couple of things for the International Radio Report. I have to also finish work on my messenger column for the month of May. So lots of radio related work tonight. And I got to eat up the cat poo and heavy cream. So take care, everybody. It was fun to be here today. And we'll be back next Saturday at 20 hours Universal Time. And of course, we'll have more about radio, talk about radio. I'm going to try to set it up so that we have a look at some of the radios that I have and the stories behind them next week. I think it's going to be kind of cool to check that out. So stay safe, everybody. Love you all. I'm going to go make my poutine now and then be heading off for Ray. If I hear anything special on the radio, I'll be posting on the Facebook group tonight. So if you guys hang around your radio, why not hang around the Facebook group and look at the posts? Maybe I'll have something to share at the same time. So take care, everybody. Stay safe. Love you all. And see you next Saturday, 20 hours Universal Time for another show. Bye bye there.